You know that feeling, right? That kind of constant low hum in the back of your mind.
Hmm.
The one that just ticks away at your sense of possibility.
Yeah. Yeah, for them.
Often that hum is the weight of debt. It limits what you feel you can do, where you think you can go.
It really does. That feeling of constraint is something so many people grapple with.
So today we're diving deep, really getting into strategies for shaking off that weight, finding genuine financial freedom by, well, eliminating debt.
And the resources you shared with us, they offer a really comprehensive look, not just the challenges, but, a clear and actionable roadmap to actually overcoming it.
Exactly. And we know you're looking for info that's like thorough but also efficient, something that cuts through the overwhelm.
Right. Get straight to the point.
So we've immersed ourselves in this material, and it's packed. I mean, everything from the basics, understanding what you owe, right up to building lasting wealth down the line. Our mission today, to pull out the most critical stuff, the most immediately useful pieces of this puzzle, really, to guide you towards becoming debt-free.
And it's important to recognize just how big this issue is.
Yeah.
Your sources mentioned a really eye-opening statistic.
Yeah.
The average American household carries around $97,000 in debt.
Wow. 97,000.
Yeah. That figure really underscores why having a strategy isn't just helpful, it's often, essential for financial well-being long term.
$97,000. It's a stark reminder, isn't it? Okay, so where do we even begin? How do you start tackling something that feels that big?
Well, the sources are really clear on this. The very first step, the absolute foundation, is getting a precise understanding of your current situation.
Okay.
They call it a debt inventory assessment.
But debt inventory assessment, okay.
This initial step is, well, it's non-negotiable, really.
Yeah.
You can't chart a course if you don't know your starting point, right?
It's
So this assessment is all about gathering the essential details for every single debt you're managing.
Right, so we're talking everything. Credit cards, student loans, car payment, mortgage, medical bills, the lot.
The whole lot, yeah.
Yeah.
And the key is putting it all in one place, organizing it, like a debt spreadsheet.
Okay, a debt spreadsheet. So what exactly are we tracking for each debt on this spreadsheet?
Okay, so for each one, the creditor name, obviously, the total balance you still owe,
Yeah.
crucially, the interest rate, that's a big one,
Right.
your minimum monthly payment, the due date for that payment, and importantly, any special terms, like maybe an introductory 0% rate that's about to expire.
Got it. So really getting all the nitty-gritty details down, that gives you the full picture.
Exactly, a complete financial snapshot.
Okay, spreadsheet's done. We see it all laid out. What's the next step in really understanding the situation? Our sources mentioned calculating your debt-to-income ratio. Sounds a bit technical.
It sounds technical, but the concept is pretty straightforward. Think of it like a financial stress test.
Okay.
It tells you how much of your monthly income is already spoken for by debt payments.
Ah, okay. So how much is going out versus coming in, essentially?
Pretty much. You calculate it by taking your total monthly debt payments,
Right.
all those minimums you just listed,
Right.
dividing that total by your total monthly gross income, so income before taxes.
Okay.
Then multiply by 100 to get a percentage. That percentage is your debt-to-income ratio, or DTI.
Then why is that number so important? What does it tell us?
It shows the proportion of your income eaten up by debt.
Yeah.
Your sources say a DTI ratio over 40%. Well, that suggests significant financial stress.
40%. So if more than 40% of your gross income is going just to service debt?
Yeah, that warrants immediate attention. It means your financial flexibility is seriously limited. Less room for savings, emergencies, other goals.
Okay, makes sense. So we know what we owe, we know our DTI. Now, the big question, how do we decide which debts to attack first? Because looking at that spreadsheet, it can feel, well, overwhelming.
Absolutely. And this is where strategic prioritization comes in. You don't just attack randomly. Your sources outline several key factors to weigh up. First, and probably most obvious, is the interest rate.
Higher rate means it's costing you more.
Exactly. Higher rate debt costs more over time, so that's a major factor. Then there's tax deductibility.
Oh, right, like mortgage interest sometimes being deductible?
Precisely. That can slightly offset the cost, so it's something to consider.
Okay, so cost is key. What else influences the priority list?
You also need to think about the consequences of not paying. Some debts have much more severe repercussions if you fall behind.
Like child support or tax debts.
Exactly. Those often jump to the top of the priority list because the legal consequences are serious. And finally, consider if the debt is secured or unsecured.
Secured meaning there's an asset tied to it, like a car for a car loan or the house for a mortgage.
Correct. With secured debt, the lender can potentially repossess that asset if you default. That risk factor definitely plays into prioritization.
Right, so it's not just about the numbers. Real-world consequences matter too. Okay, we've got a handle on understanding the situation. Now for the exciting part, how do we actually start getting rid of it?
Okay, let's dive into the core payoff strategies. Your sources detail a few main ones. Let's start with the debt snowball method. Catchy name.
Debt snowball. Yeah, I've heard of this one, recommended by Dave Ramsey, right?
That's the one. It's very popular.
Yeah.
The idea is you list your debts from the smallest balance to the largest, ignoring the interest rates for a moment.
Okay, smallest balance first.
Right. You make minimum payments on all your debts, except the one with the smallest balance. On that smallest one, you throw every extra penny you can find.
Okay, so you focus all your firepower on the little guy.
Exactly. Once that smallest debt is completely paid off, gone, you take the entire amount you were paying on it, the minimum plus all the extra, and you add it to the minimum payment of the next smallest debt.
Ooh, so the payment amount rolls over and gets bigger, like a snowball rolling downhill.
Precisely. That's the snowball effect. As you pay off each debt, the payment you're making on the next one grows significantly.
So what's the big draw here? Why is this method so popular?
It's all about psychology. Motivation. Seeing those smaller debts disappear relatively quickly gives you these amazing psychological wins.
Right, feel like you're making progress fast, ticking things off the list.
Exactly. Those early victories can be incredibly motivating and keep you fired up to continue. It's great for people who need that sense of accomplishment to stay on track.
That makes a ton of sense. Building momentum. But
Yeah.
I'm guessing there's a downside. Is it the cheapest way?
Mathematically, no, it's usually not.
Huh.
Because you're ignoring interest rates initially, you might end up paying more interest over the total repayment period compared to other methods.
Okay. So you pay for the motivation boost with potentially higher overall interest costs.
That's the trade-off, yeah. If your absolute top priority is minimizing the total amount paid, the snowball isn't the most efficient.
So who's the ideal candidate for the debt snowball?
It's really best for people who thrive on those quick wins. If you need that immediate feedback, that feeling of progress, or if you've struggled to stick with financial plans before, the psychological boost from the snowball could be exactly what you need to keep going.
Got it. Motivation first, math second. Okay, now let's flip that. What about the debt avalanche method? Sounds a bit more intense.
Maybe.
Yeah.
The debt avalanche is the opposite approach in terms of prioritization. It is all about the math. It's the most financially efficient strategy.
Okay, so how does it work?
With the avalanche, you list your debts by interest rate, from the highest rate down to the lowest.
Highest interest rate first. Makes sense financially.
Exactly. You make minimum payments on all debts, but you throw all your extra money at the debt with the highest interest rate.
Because that's the one costing you the most money.
Precisely. Once that highest rate debt is paid off, you take all the money you were paying on it, minimum plus extra, and attack the debt with the next highest interest rate, and so on.
So the focus here is purely on saving the maximum amount of money on interest over the long haul.
Correct. By tackling the most expensive debt first, you reduce the total interest paid, and you'll generally get out of debt faster overall compared to the snowball, assuming the same extra payment amount.
It's the optimal strategy, mathematically speaking.
Yes. From a pure numbers perspective, it's superior.
But like the snowball, I'm guessing there are potential drawbacks. It sounds like it might take longer to feel like you're making progress.
That's exactly the main challenge. If your highest interest debt also happens to have a really large balance, it could take a long time before you actually pay off that first debt.
Yeah, I can see how that could be discouraging. You're paying extra, but the finish line for that first debt feels miles away.
Right. It requires more patience and discipline. You don't get those quick, frequent wins like you do with the snowball. The victories might feel further apart, even though you are saving more money.
So who is the debt avalanche best suited for?
It's ideal for people who are really motivated by the numbers. If you're driven by efficiency, by knowing you're saving the absolute most money possible, and you don't need those constant psychological pats on the back, the avalanche is probably the way to go. If logic and long-term savings fuel you, this is your method.
Okay, snowball for motivation, avalanche for math. Two core strategies. Now, our sources also talk a lot about debt consolidation. We hear this term all the time. What's the basic idea?
Debt consolidation is basically about combining multiple debts into a single, new loan or credit product.
Okay, rolling several payments into one.
Exactly. The main goals are usually to simplify your payments, just one bill to track instead of many, and hopefully to get a lower overall interest rate than what you were paying across all the individual debts.
Sounds appealing. What are the common ways people actually do this?
There are quite a few options. A big one is getting a personal consolidation loan from a bank or credit union. Another popular method is using a balance transfer credit card.
Ah, the ones with the 0% introductory offers.
Right. You transfer high-interest card balances onto that new card. Then there are home equity options like a home equity loan or a home equity line of credit, HELOC.
Using your house as collateral.
Yes, which comes with significant risks we need to talk about. Less common, and usually advised against unless absolutely necessary, is borrowing from your 401k.
Yeah, reading the retirement fund seems risky.
It is. And finally, there are debt management plans, often offered through nonprofit credit counseling agencies. That's another form of consolidation.
Okay, lots of ways to do it. What are the potential upsides? Why would someone choose consolidation?
Well, the biggest potential benefits are simplification. Just one payment is easier to manage. Potentially a lower interest rate, which saves money. Often a fixed repayment timeline, so you know exactly when you'll be debt-free.
That predictability sounds good.
It can be. Also, consolidating credit card debt might improve your credit utilization ratio, which can help your credit score. And importantly, if you're getting hounded by collectors for multiple debts, consolidation can sometimes stop those calls.
Okay, simplification, lower rates, maybe a credit score boost. Sounds pretty good. But what are the catches, the downsides?
Definitely things to watch out for. Sometimes the new loan might have a longer repayment term. So even if the rate is lower, you could end up paying more interest over time because you're paying for longer.
Ah, sneaky. Gotta read the fine print.
Absolutely. Also, the best consolidation options usually require good credit to qualify for those low rates.
Oh.
There can be fees involved, origination fees, balance transfer fees that can eat into savings.
Right.
A huge risk is that once you consolidate, say, credit cards, you suddenly have all this available credit again on the old cards. The temptation to run them back up is real.
Yeah, if you haven't fixed the spending habits that got you into debt.
Exactly. Consolidation doesn't fix the root problem. And as we mentioned, using home equity loans is risky because you're turning unsecured debt, like credit cards, into debt secured by your house. Default means you could lose your home.
That's a massive risk. Really critical point. So given the pros and cons, who is consolidation generally a good fit for?
It's typically best for someone with a good credit score who can genuinely qualify for a significantly lower interest rate. Someone who is struggling to manage multiple payments but has a stable income. And crucially, someone who is absolutely committed to not accumulating new debt once the old debts are consolidated. The math has to make sense and the behavior has to change. Okay. Discipline is key there. Now, you mentioned balance transfers as a type of consolidation, but our sources also highlight the balance transfer strategy almost as its own thing, specifically for credit cards.
Yeah, it's worth looking at specifically because it's so common for credit card debt. The strategy is simple. Move high-interest credit card balances to a new card offering a very low, often 0% introductory APR for a set period.
So basically hitting pause on the interest charges for, say, 12 or 18 months.
Exactly. The big benefit is the potential for massive interest savings during that intro period. All your payments go towards the principal instead of being eaten up by interest.
That sounds incredibly powerful for getting ahead. It can be. It gives you a window to really attack the principal balance. It can also simplify payments if you consolidate multiple cards onto one transfer card. And maybe a small temporary boost to credit utilization if you keep the old cards open but unused.
Okay, but what's the catch with balance transfers? Seems too good to be true.
Well, first, there's usually a balance transfer fee, typically 3 to 5% of the amount you transfer, charged upfront.
Ah, so it's not totally free.
Right. And the absolute biggest thing is discipline. You have to have a plan to pay off as much of that balance as possible, ideally all of it before that 0% intro period ends.
Because after that,
The interest rate usually jumps up, often to a very high variable rate on whatever balance is left. It's called the go-to rate. And if you haven't paid it off, you could end up right back where you started, or worse.
ouch. So the clock is ticking.
Definitely. Plus, the temptation to use the old, now empty cards is still there. And you generally need good to excellent credit to qualify for the best offers with the longest 0% periods.
So it's a great tool, but you need a solid plan and the discipline to execute it. Who's it best for?
People with good credit, who are confident they can pay off most or all of the transfer debt within that promotional window, usually 12 to 21 months. It's about strategically using that interest-free time.
Okay, great overview of the big strategies. Now let's get more specific. The sources break down tactics for different types of debt, starting with probably the most common pain point, credit card debt.
Yeah, credit card debt. As the sources emphasize, it often has incredibly high interest rates, making it super expensive debt to carry month after month.
So besides balance transfers or maybe consolidating it, what else can we do specifically for credit cards?
One thing people often don't try, but that your sources say has a surprisingly high success rate, is simply calling the credit card company and asking for a lower interest rate.
Really? Just ask.
Just ask, especially if you have a decent payment history. The worst they can say is no. The debt avalanche method is also perfect here. Attack that highest rate card first.
Nice.
Debt management plans through nonprofit credit counseling can also negotiate lower rates on your behalf. And for very severe situations, debt settlement is an option, but again, with major warnings about credit score damage.
Okay. Any specific pro tips for dealing with credit cards day to day?
Yes. Make it a habit. Call your issuers maybe twice a year to ask for that lower rate. Always pay more than the minimum. Even $20 extra makes a difference over time.
Right. Chip away at the principal.
Exactly. If you're serious, stop using the cards. Freeze them in ice, cut them up, whatever it takes to break the habit. And for those with excellent credit and discipline, credit card surfing, strategically moving balances between 0% offers can work, but it requires meticulous organization.
And what are the big red flags, the warning signs of a credit card crisis? When should someone be really worried?
If you can only make minimum payments month after month, if your cards are maxed out or always near the limit, if you're using one card to pay another, that's a big one.
The debt shuffle.
Right. Or if you're relying on credit cards for basic necessities like groceries or gas, with no clear plan to pay it back quickly, those are signs things are getting out of control.
Okay, good warnings. Let's shift to another huge one, student loan debt. Our sources say this is complex because of the federal versus private loan distinction.
Very true. The strategies really differ. For federal student loans, there's a whole suite of options. Income-driven repayment plans, IDR, are key. Plans like Payee, Repayee, IBR, they adjust your payment based on your income and family size.
That can be a lifesaver if your income is low.
Absolutely. Then there's Public Service Loan Forgiveness, PSLF, for people working in eligible government or nonprofit jobs. Teacher loan forgiveness for educators.
Important programs.
Definitely. Also, signing up for autopay usually gets you a small interest rate reduction, like 0.25%. And for some federal borrowers, usually those with high incomes and good credit who don't need IDR, refinancing into a private loan might make sense to get a lower rate, but you lose all the federal protections.
Right, that's a big trade-off. What about strategies for private student loans? They don't have all those federal programs.
No, they don't. So for private loans, the main strategy is often refinancing to get a lower interest rate, especially if your credit or income has improved since you first took out the loan.
Shop around for a better deal.
Exactly. Making biweekly payments can help pay it off faster. Some lenders might offer temporary hardship programs if you hit a rough patch, and very occasionally, if a private loan is in default, you might be able to negotiate a lump sum settlement. But that's rare.
Okay. Any overall pro tips for navigating student loans, both federal and private?
General advice. Always explore and exhaust your federal loan options first before considering refinancing privately. You want to give up those protections lightly.
Good point.
Since private loans usually have fewer protections and sometimes higher rates, prioritize paying those down first if you have both types. Any extra payments you make sure they go directly to the principal.
Specify that with the servicer.
Yes. And because rates can vary a lot, the debt avalanche method often makes the most sense. For student loans, tackle the highest rate first.
Got it. Okay, let's talk about the house. Mortgage debt. Biggest loan for most people, even if the rate is relatively low.
Right. The sheer size means even small changes make a big difference over 15 or 30 years. Refinancing is a major strategy here. If rates drop significantly, the rule of thumb is often if you can get at least 0.75% lower than your current rate, it's worth investigating.
Can save a lot over the life of the loan.
Definitely. Another thing is mortgage recasting. If you make a large lump sum payment towards the principal, some lenders will recalculate or recast your monthly payment lower, keeping the same loan end date.
Interesting. Didn't know about that.
Yeah, not all lenders offer it. Biweekly payments are popular too. Pay half your mortgage every 2 weeks. That results in one extra payment per year, cutting down the principal fast.
Shortens the loan term too, right?
Yep. And just making extra principal payments whenever you can, even small amounts, adds up significantly over time. Considering a 15-year versus a 30-year mortgage up front is also huge if you can afford the higher payment of the 15-year. Saves a ton of interest.
Okay. Any key pro tips for mortgages beyond refinancing?
Yes. Even adding just $100 extra to your monthly payment can shave years off the loan and save thousands in interest. It's powerful.
Wow.
But don't get so focused on paying off the mortgage early that you neglect retirement savings, especially if you're getting an employer match. That match is free money.
Balance is key.
Always. Consider the tax deduction for mortgage interest too. It slightly reduces the effective cost. And generally, prioritize paying off high-interest debt like credit cards before aggressively paying down a relatively low-interest mortgage.
Makes sense. Get the expensive stuff out of the way first. Okay, how about auto loans? Strategies there.
Pretty similar principles, actually. If you got stuck with a high rate, look into refinancing, especially if your credit's improved.
Shop for a better rate, just like with private student loans or mortgages.
Exactly. Rounding up your payments each month is an easy way to pay a little extra principal. Bi-weekly payments work here too. Target extra payments directly at the principal.
Standard stuff. What if you're underwater on the loan, owing more than the car is worth?
That's tough. If you're really struggling financially and underwater, you might have to consider selling the car, even if you have to pay the difference, and downsizing to something much cheaper. It's a hard choice, but sometimes necessary.
Right. Any specific pro tips for car loans?
Check your loan agreement for prepayment penalties before you start making big extra payments. Some loans, though fewer now, penalize you for paying off early.
Good to know.
Avoid extending the loan term just to get a lower monthly payment. You'll pay way more interest in the long run. And if you financed, make sure you have gap insurance if you owe more than the car's value. Standard insurance only covers the car's current market value if it's totaled. Gap covers the gap.
Crucial if you're underwater. Okay, last category. Medical debt. This one feels different, often unexpected.
It is different, and often needs a unique approach. First step, always try to negotiate directly with the provider, the hospital, the doctor's office before it goes to collections.
Negotiate, like ask for a discount.
Yes, or ask about payment plans. Also, always request a detailed, itemized bill. Errors are incredibly common. Your sources mention up to 80% of bills might contain errors.
80%, wow. Okay, check the bill carefully.
Definitely. Ask specifically about financial assistance or charity care programs they might offer. Many hospitals have them. See if you can set up an interest-free payment plan directly with them.
Avoid interest if possible.
Absolutely. In complex situations, you could even hire a medical billing advocate to negotiate for you.
Okay. Any pro tips specifically for medical debt?
Good news. Medical debts under $500 generally don't show up on your main credit reports anymore. Also, medical collections tend to hurt your credit score less than other types of collections.
That's helpful.
Providers are often more willing to accept a reduced lump sum settlement than, say, a credit card company might be. So negotiation is often very worthwhile. And crucially, try your best not to put medical debt onto a high-interest credit card. That just makes it much more expensive.
Right, keep it separate if you can.
Yeah.
Okay, we've got the debt landscape mapped out, strategies for different types, but none of this works without controlling the cash flow, right? Budgeting.
Absolutely. Budgeting is the engine that drives the debt payoff train. Your sources highlight a few effective techniques. Let's start with zero-based budgeting.
Zero-based sounds intense. Give every dollar a job.
That's exactly it. You allocate every single dollar of your income to a specific category: bills, debt payments, savings, groceries, gas, everything, until income minus expenses equals zero.
Total accountability.
Maximum accountability. It forces you to be intentional. You know exactly where your money is going, no more where did it all go at the end of the month. And it really helps identify where you can cut back to free up more cash for debt.
Sounds powerful. What's the downside? Seems like a lot of work.
It can be time intensive, yeah. Especially at first. You have to track diligently, categorize everything.
Yeah.
It can feel a bit restrictive for some people too, less flexible if income or expenses fluctuate a lot.
Okay. What about the 50-30-20 rule? That stuff is simpler.
It's designed to be simpler. The idea is you divide your after-tax income, 50% for needs, housing, utilities, food, minimum debt payments, essentials, 30% for wants, entertainment, hobbies, dining out, and 20% for savings and extra debt payments.
Needs, wants, savings, debt. Okay. Pros and cons.
Pro, it's easy to understand and implement. Provides a basic framework, some balance. Con, for someone with a lot of high-interest debt, that 20% for savings and extra debt payments might not be aggressive enough to make fast progress.
Right. Might need to allocate more to debt than just 20%.
Exactly. And in high cost of living areas, fitting all your needs into just 50% could be really tough.
Yeah, I can see that. Okay, last one. The cash envelope system feels very old school. Does it still work?
Surprisingly well for some things. You decide how much you'll spend on certain variable categories, groceries, entertainment, clothes maybe, and you put that exact amount of cash into labeled envelopes for the month.
And when the cash in the envelope is gone,
Spending in that category stops. Done for the month.
very tangible limit. What's the benefit?
Studies actually show people tend to spend less when using physical cash. It feels more real than swiping a card. It forces conscious spending and really helps curb overspending in problem categories.
Makes sense. But the downsides seem obvious in 2024.
Yeah, it's inconvenient for online shopping, paying bills online. You have to physically handle cash, go to the ATM. There's a risk of losing the cash. And you miss out on credit card rewards points if that's something you value.
Okay, so different budgeting styles for different people. Beyond the main methods, what about those budget boosters? Little tricks to find more money for debt.
Lots of good ones. Do an expense, audit track everything for a month, see where the leaks are, cancel unused subscriptions, call your provider's internet, cable, insurance, and try to negotiate lower bills. Seriously challenge every purchase. Is this a need or a want?
The need versus want challenge. Tough, but effective.
Very. Try no-spend challenges, a weekend, a week, a month where you only spend on absolute essentials. Commit windfalls, tax refunds, bonuses almost entirely to debt, like 90% or more.
Don't just absorb them into regular spending.
Right. Use budgeting apps like Mint, YNAB, Personal Capital to track everything easily. And of course, look for ways to increase income. Side hustle, sell stuff you don't need. Every extra dollar helps accelerate the payoff.
Great tips. Okay, so we're budgeting, we're finding extra cash. But what if we're still struggling? What if the minimum payments are just too much? Our sources talk about negotiating with creditors. Is that really possible?
It absolutely is. Many people don't realize that terms aren't always set in stone, especially if you're facing genuine hardship. It's always worth reaching out.
Okay, let's take credit card companies first. What can you realistically negotiate?
Quite a bit, potentially. You can ask for a lower APR. Ask them to waive fees, annual fees, late fees. Maybe change your due date to line up better with your paycheck. Inquire about hardship programs if you've lost a job or had a medical issue. And in severe cases, you might negotiate a settlement for less than the full balance.
Okay. How do you actually do that? Any tips for the conversation?
Preparation helps. Know what competitors are offering. When you call, be polite but firm. Mention your payment history if it's good. Casually mention you're considering balance transfer offers elsewhere that gives you leverage.
Play them off each other a bit.
Gently, yes. Don't be afraid to ask for a supervisor if the first person can't help. And be persistent, but always polite. The source material even has script examples, which is helpful.
Nice. What about student loan servicers? Are they negotiable too?
Yes, but in different ways. You can definitely negotiate which repayment plan you're on, especially with federal loans moving to an IBR plan. You can request forbearance or deferment if you're in hardship. Settlements are rare, especially for federal loans, but sometimes possible for defaulted private loans. You can also ask about waiving certain fees.
What's the best approach when talking to them?
Understand your options beforehand, especially the federal IDR plans. Document everything, who you spoke to, when, what was said. If you have federal loans and are struggling, specifically ask about IDR eligibility. For private loans, clearly explain your hardship situation.
Okay. And the scary one, collection agencies. Can you negotiate with them? They seem so inflexible.
Actually, yes. They often buy debt for pennies on the dollar, so they have room to negotiate. You can negotiate the settlement amount, often significantly less than the original debt. You can negotiate a payment plan. You can sometimes negotiate how they report it to the credit bureaus.
Like a pay for delete, where they agree to remove it if you pay.
Exactly. That's a key negotiation point, though not all agencies will agree to it.
What are the crucial tactics when dealing with collectors?
Always communicate in writing if possible. Creates a paper trail. Never give them electronic access to your bank account. Send checks or money orders. Start settlement offers low, maybe 30% of the debt, and negotiate up. Always get any settlement agreement in writing before you send any money.
Get it in writing first. Super important.
Critical. And know the statute of limitations for debt collection in your state. Be careful not to accidentally restart the clock on old debt by making a small payment.
Wow, negotiation is a powerful tool if used right. Okay, shifting gears slightly. This whole process, it's not just numbers, is it? There's a huge psychological side to getting out of debt.
Oh, absolutely huge. It's often the biggest hurdle. You can have the perfect plan, but if your head's not in the right place, it's easy to get derailed.
What are some common mental blocks, those psychological barriers that trip people up?
Avoidance is a big one. Just ignoring the bills, hoping it goes away. Present bias, wanting immediate gratification now instead of focusing on the long-term goal of being debt-free.
Spending on wants instead of needs or debt.
Right. Then there are money scripts, those deep-seated beliefs about money we learned growing up, which might be sabotaging us. Financial fatigue, just getting worn out by the constant stress and effort, and all-or-nothing thinking.
Like, if I can't pay an extra $500 this month, paying an extra $50 is pointless.
Exactly, when actually every extra dollar matters. Those small amounts add up.
So how do we fight these? How do we stay motivated when it feels like a long, hard slog?
Lots of techniques. Visualization. Really picture what debt-free life looks and feels like. Calculate your estimated debt-free date, gives you a concrete target. Get an accountability partner, a friend, family member, spouse to share progress and struggles with.
Someone to keep you honest.
Reward yourself for hitting milestones, but make the rewards budget-friendly. Use financial affirmations, positive statements about your ability to manage money. Track your progress visually. Use an app, a chart, a debt thermometer. Seeing the balance go down is motivating.
Yeah, that visual progress helps.
Join a debt-free community online or in person for support and shared experience. The sources even had a great success story example. Reading those can be really inspiring.
Seeing others do it makes it feel possible. What about setbacks? Unexpected car repair, medical bill? How do you bounce back without giving up?
Expect setbacks, they happen. That's what the emergency fund is for, partly. When one hits, try to analyze why it happened, learn from it, but don't beat yourself up. Practice self-compassion.
It's not failure, it's a bump in the road.
Exactly. Refocus on small wins to regain momentum. Maybe adjust your budget or plan temporarily if needed. Resilience and flexibility are key.
Okay, now thankfully we don't have to do this all alone or with just pen and paper. There are tools. What are some top apps or services the sources recommend?
Yeah, technology can really help. Apps like undebt.it or Debt Payoff Planner are great for modeling Snowball versus Avalanche and tracking progress. Tiller Money links directly to spreadsheets for super detailed tracking.
For the spreadsheet nerds.
Yeah, Y&A, You Need a Budget, is a very popular comprehensive budgeting app that handles debt well. Personal Capital and Mint give you a broader financial overview, including debt, investments, net worth. Debt Manager is another focused debt tracking app.
Lots of options.
And don't forget nonprofits like the National Foundation for Credit Counseling, NFCC. They connect you with certified counselors for personalized help.
What if someone prefers a more DIY, maybe less digital approach? Any suggestions for a low-tech tracking system?
Absolutely. You can easily create your own Snowball or Avalanche calculator in a basic spreadsheet. Make a simple debt payoff timeline chart. Use a calendar to schedule payments and track due dates.
Visual aids.
Yeah, draw a debt thermometer and color it in as you pay down the balance. Create a debt-free calendar and cross off the days. Or just a simple milestone tracker on paper to celebrate paying off $1,000 or eliminating a whole debt. Sometimes simple and visual is really effective.
Totally. Okay, we touched on debt consolidation earlier, but the sources go deeper, really analyzing when it makes sense and when it's risky. Let's revisit that.
Right, because it's not a magic bullet. It can be helpful, or it can make things worse if not done carefully.
So, when does consolidation generally make sense? What are the green lights?
Green light, if you have good enough credit to qualify for a significantly lower interest rate than your current average rate across all the debts. Green light if you're overwhelmed managing multiple payments and simplifying to one payment would genuinely help you stay on track.
Okay, lower rate, simplification.
Green light if you have stable income to reliably make the new consolidated payment. And the biggest green light if you've actually addressed the underlying spending habits that cause the debt. And obviously, if the math works out, lower total interest paid, maybe a faster payoff.
Makes sense. What about the red flags? When is consolidation likely a bad idea?
Big red flag if you haven't fixed the spending issues, you'll just free up credit and likely dig a deeper hole. Red flag if the consolidation loan extends the repayment term so much that you end up paying more interest overall, even with a lower rate.
Gotta watch that total cost.
Definitely. Red flag if there are high fees that wipe out the interest savings. Red flag if you're just doing it to lower payments so you can spend more elsewhere. And a huge red flag, as we said, if you're using home equity to consolidate unsecured debt without fully understanding the risk to your home.
Okay. The sources had a comparison table of different options too. Can you recap the main ones quickly?
Sure. Personal loans, good for good credit, fixed rates terms, balance transfer cards.
Yeah.
Best for good credit, disciplined payoff within the 0% period, home equity loan HELO E, lower rates possible, but huge E risk, your home is collateral. Needs discipline, significant equity. 401k, loan, generally a last resort, impacts retirement, tax implications. Debt management plan via credit counseling. Good if you don't qualify elsewhere. Need structure, helps negotiate rates, usually has a monthly fee.
Great summary. And if someone does consolidate, what's the plan for success after consolidating? How do they stay on track?
A post-consolidation plan is crucial. Step 1. Cut them or lock away the old credit cards. Remove the temptation. Step 2. Stick religiously to a budget, preferably zero-based. Step 3. Build that emergency fund ASAP to handle surprises without borrowing again.
Break the cycle.
Exactly. Track spending diligently. Address the emotional triggers behind any past overspending. Automate the consolidation loan payment so you never miss it. And schedule regular financial check-ins with yourself or your partner to monitor progress and stay focused.
Okay. Now, building that emergency fund, it's so critical for preventing future debt. How do the sources suggest building it, especially while also paying off existing debt?
They recommend a phased approach. While you're aggressively tackling high-interest debt, aim for a small starter emergency fund first, maybe just $1,000. Something to cover minor bumps.
Okay, a baby step first.
Right. Once the high-interest debt is gone, then shift focus to building it up to cover maybe 1 month of essential expenses. That's the interim fund.
Getting more robust.
Then, once all non-mortgage debt is paid off, the final goal is a fully funded emergency fund covering 3 to 6 months of essential living expenses. That's your real safety net.
3 to 6 months. Okay. Where should this money live? Not just a checking account, right?
Ideally, somewhere safe, accessible, but maybe slightly separate so you're not tempted to dip into it. High-yield savings accounts are great. Money market accounts too. Maybe no penalty CDs for slightly better rates if you know you won't need it instantly.
But not investment accounts.
Generally, no. You need it stable and liquid. Investment values fluctuate, and accessing them quickly can be tricky or costly.
How do you balance building the fund and paying debt? Seems like competing priorities.
While paying high-interest debt, maybe split any extra money, say 80% to debt, 20% to the starter fund, or pause aggressive debt payoff just long enough to hit that $1,000 starter goal, then go back to attacking debt full force. Automate small transfers to the savings account. Use windfalls strategically, maybe half to debt, half to the emergency fund until it's built up. Roundup apps can help too, saving small amounts automatically.
Okay, find a balance that works. Besides the emergency fund, what other financial security aspects are important while paying off debt? Insurance comes to mind.
Absolutely critical. Having the right insurance protects you from catastrophic expenses that could completely derail your debt payoff. Health insurance is non-negotiable. Proper auto insurance, renters, or homeowners insurance. Disability insurance is often overlooked, but vital replaces income if you can't work. And term life insurance if you have dependents relying on your income.
Don't skimp on protection.
No. And you can look for ways to save, bundle policies, raise deductibles slightly if your emergency fund can cover it. Shop around annually for quotes.
Good tips. What about retirement? Do you just stop saving completely while focusing on debt?
Most experts advise against stopping completely, especially if you get an employer match. That match is free money.
Right. Don't leave free money on the table.
Never. A balanced approach is usually best. Contribute at least enough to get the full employer match. While aggressively paying high-interest debt, maybe just do the match and put everything else towards debt. Once the high-interest stuff is gone, ramp up retirement contributions again towards recommended levels, like 15% or more. Use tax refunds strategically, maybe split between debt and an IRA contribution.
Balance again. Attack debt, but don't totally sacrifice the future. Okay, let's look ahead. We're debt-free. Amazing feeling. Now what? How do we transition from debt payoff to actually building wealth?
That's the exciting part. All that money previously going to debt payments can now work for you. The sources suggest a framework. Maybe 15–20% of income to retirement, 10% to other savings goals, house down payment, travel, 5–10% of taxable investments, maybe extra mortgage payments if that aligns with your goals, and some for charitable giving if that's important to you.
So reallocating those old debt payments purposefully, what's the typical wealth building progression look like after debt freedom?
First, ensure that 3–6 month emergency fund is rock solid. Then, max out tax-advantaged retirement accounts, 401k, IRA. Start saving specifically for medium-term goals. Then begin investing in taxable brokerage accounts. Low-cost index funds are a great start. Maybe explore rental real estate later if interested. And review increased insurance as your assets grow.
Building layer by layer. How do we make sure we stay debt-free, avoid sliding back? What habits keep us secure long term?
Keep budgeting. Even when debt-free, tracking spending is key. Use the 30-day rule for large, non-essential purchases. Wait 30 days, see if you still want it. Watch out for lifestyle creep. Income goes up, spending goes up automatically. Fight that.
Stay grounded.
Practice gratitude. Appreciate what you have. Create specific savings buckets for irregular expenses like car repairs or holidays so they don't become debt. And watch for warning signs. Using credit cards without paying in full, savings rate dropping, comparing yourself financially to others, feeling entitled to spend beyond your plan.
Constant vigilance. Okay, last section, special situations. What about dealing with old collection accounts or charge-offs that might still be lingering?
Right. If you have those, communicate with the collector in writing. Send a debt validation letter first. Make them prove they own the debt and the amount is correct. Negotiate a settlement, aiming for pay for delete if possible, and get the agreement in writing before paying. Understand the statute of limitations and credit reporting time limits.
Okay, and any other specific student loan strategies for tough situations or forgiveness?
We mentioned PSLF, teacher loan forgiveness. IDR plans can lead to forgiveness after 20-25 years, though potentially taxable. Perkins loans have specific cancellation provisions. Total and permanent disability discharge is an option for severe medical situations. Always weigh losing federal benefits carefully before refinancing federal loans privately.
And for truly overwhelming debt, when it feels hopeless?
Credit counseling through a reputable nonprofit agency, like NFCC affiliates, is a great first step. They can help with budgeting and potentially a debt management plan. Debt settlement is an option, negotiating lower payoffs, but again, it damages your credit significantly. And as a last resort, bankruptcy, Chapter 7 or 13, provides legal relief but has serious, long-lasting consequences. Always consult an attorney before considering bankruptcy.
Okay. This has been incredibly comprehensive, a real deep dive into getting out and staying out of debt. It's definitely a journey.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
But freedom from debt, it just opens up so many more choices, reduces so much stress. It's about reclaiming control. Remember the core ideas. Pick a strategy that motivates you. Stick to a budget. Avoid new debt like the plague. Build that emergency fund safety net. Track your progress. Stay mentally strong and keep your eye on the prize.
And it starts now, right, with one step. Implementing these strategies really is about taking back your financial future. And remember, the sources have even more books, websites, communities for extra support if you need it.
So now that you've got a much clearer picture of all these strategies, think about this. What's the very first, maybe small, but meaningful action you could take today to start your own journey towards becoming debt-free?